Welcome to meeting number 10 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration. The committee meeting today is being held at the request of 4 members pursuant to Standing Order 106-4 to discuss undertaking a study of the government's spending priorities under Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada. I hope all of you have been keeping yourself safe and everyone is well. So it has been difficult last 3 months. Last I went back to Toronto from Ottawa was on March 13th and just drove after that yesterday. So we have to make sure that we keep ourselves safe and we are not still out of the woods as yet, so please continue following public health advice and keep yourself and your loved ones safe. So today's meeting is taking place in person and is being webcast on PAL-View. The proceedings will be made available via the House of Commons website. And just to ensure an orderly meeting, I would like to outline a few rules which we all need to follow as we are all going through these unprecedented times. First is occupational health, safety, and environment has requested that we all limit our movement in the room. Individuals should always respect social distancing rules and remain at least 2 meters away from each other. So, and also to minimize health risks, you will note that limited personnel have been permitted to attend today. Staff have received a phone number where they can listen in to the proceedings in real time. No paper documents have been distributed. All documents have been distributed electronically to members. So should you require a copy of a document, please advise the clerk of the committee immediately by emailing the committee at cimm@pal.gc.ca. And also please follow the directions on the floor, the signs, which way to walk in and which way to walk back. And even when we finish the meeting, please don't go out as a group. Try to maintain the social distancing rules and make sure that maybe we leave at a difference of a few seconds, minutes, and not go out as a big group. So make sure that we follow all the rules of physical distancing. So these were some of the instructions from the logistics point of view. So welcome to meeting number 10 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration, and welcome to Ottawa. Mr. Kent.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, colleagues, for assembling in something closer to our regular committee meeting, and thank you to the clerk for arranging and enabling today's gathering, which is, in effect, and however briefly, a closer to a procedurally normal exception to the deficiencies of the virtual committee in the House and in other committees. Chair, our Conservative members wrote the letter requesting this meeting to you, and I won't go through the entire letter. I'm sure it's been consumed by all. But essentially because on May the 26th, the government, as we said in the letter, used closure, supported by the NDP, to end debate and to pass a motion that modified the usual process for consideration of the supplementary estimates at the end of the supply cycle. So in the interest of the short time available between now and 1 o'clock, now and noon for the minister, I would like to suggest that the committee accept the motion as set out in the letter, that the committee invite the Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship to appear before the committee for no less than 1 hour to answer questions from members on the spending priorities of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada.
Those in favour to adopt the motion as said by Mr. Kent? Any debate, sorry for that. Any debate on the Motion? No. All those in favor? Adopted.
Thank you.
So the motion is adopted. And we will, I think, have to suspend for a minute or so. Yes, so in order to go, as the witnesses, because of this physical distancing, we cannot have the witnesses here, so it will be through a video conference. So we will have to suspend it for a minute, and while all these video conferences can be set up. And just one more thing, because we are sitting at a distance, if I don't recognize you or I don't see your raised hand, I will try to be vigilant, but in case I miss it, please do it second time or so that the person who wants to speak is recognized. So I will suspend the meeting for a minute. Meeting suspended. Call the meeting to order. The committee has adopted the motion that the committee invite the Minister of Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship to appear before the committee for no less than an hour to answer questions from members on the spending priorities of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada. Welcome, Minister, and welcome to all the other witnesses. We would invite the Minister, and he will have 5 minutes for the opening remarks. And after the Minister's opening remarks, we will go into the round of questioning. So with this, I would like to welcome the Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship, Honorable Marco Mendicino, to please give his opening remarks. Is he there? Is the Minister there? Sorry for that. Let's figure out. Can you hear us? Is Minister logged in?
Perhaps we can suspend the
Okay, I'll suspend the minute. I will suspend the meeting for a few minutes until we figure out that everyone is online on the video conference. Meeting is suspended. Thank you, everyone. We have Minister Marco Mendicino, Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship, here before the Standing Committee. Just to provide a clarification to our viewers, we had some technical difficulties and Minister was not able to get through the video conference system because of some firewall issues. So one of the members of the committee, Michael Barrett, voluntarily gave his seat so that Minister can join in. So he left the room and that seat has been taken by Minister Marco Mendicino. I welcome Minister Marco Mendicino to appear before the committee to answer questions from the members of the Standing Committee on the spending priorities of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada. Minister, you will have 5 minutes for the opening remarks, and after that we will go into the round of questioning from the members of the committee. So, Minister, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes for the opening remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank all members of the committee for indulging us as we've overcome some of the technical difficulties this morning. And I want to thank the members of the opposition as well for not only their collaboration in allowing me to appear in person, but also for the kind offer to Lysol down the desktop. So to everyone, thank you very much. Madam Chair and members of the committee, let me first acknowledge that this committee gathers on the traditional territory of the Algonquin Nation. I appear before you today at an important juncture. I'm here to provide this committee with an update on the critical priorities that are being advanced by my department as part of the Government of Canada's overall response to a once-in-a-100-year global pandemic. In marshalling a COVID-19 strategy, Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada has demonstrated its agility, efficiency and resilience in meeting the short-term urgent needs of our population while keeping an eye focused on our long-term mandate to grow and strengthen the country through immigration. From the earliest days of the pandemic, my department has helped to create the necessary border conduits that ensure Canadians continue to get access to the food, fuel, and medical supplies which we need, while putting in place the necessary health screens and mandatory isolation protocols to guard against the spread of COVID-19. As the curve continues to flatten, we were also recently able to announce a new travel exemption which would allow immediate family members to reunite with Canadians and permanent residents. We know it's been a difficult time for many families, but we are not free and clear of the virus yet. Let me say a few words how immigration has proven to be a lifeline in maintaining food security for all Canadians. This pandemic has etched into our national consciousness that temporary foreign workers play a key role in the production and distribution of Canada's food supply. Les travailleurs étrangers temporaires sont un élément.
Foreign workers are an essential element in production and the distribution chain for food supply in Canada, and we have taken steps to support them. And that's why I would like to take a moment to speak about the situation before us currently.
From Mexico. They were here to help feed Canadians and to support their families back home. And they died in that cause. This should never have happened. We mourn their loss, but that's not enough. We must do more. As a country, we are committed to the safety and well-being of all workers, Canadians and migrants alike. That's why our government took quick action to support this vulnerable community by providing financial aid for workers so that they would have safer accommodations, wage protections, work permit flexibility, and a compliance regime to enforce their rights. However, numerous outbreaks along the supply chain have reminded us that there is still more work to do to protect migrant workers, including considering pathways to permanent residency. Along with my ministerial colleagues, I am committed to collaborating with all parliamentarians, my provincial counterparts, farmers, and advocates to explore this and other options. Je pensais que c'était important de faire le point.
It was important to update this, and I will have an opportunity to discuss the different measures we have put in place later when I answer your questions.
For a moment, how refugees and asylum seekers have distinguished themselves throughout the pandemic. Despite overcoming significant adversity just to get here, we've seen how they are stepping up to support the communities that sponsored them. In Quebec, asylum seekers are contributing in exceptional ways by helping frontline health workers, especially in our long-term retirement homes where the virus has ravaged the seniors and the sick. These uncommon acts of sacrifice and heroism should embolden us to fight against the stigma that refugees and asylum seekers are merely a burden. They are not. They're here to contribute. And so we're putting forward in our supplementary estimates proposed $102.5 million, reprofiled from the previous fiscal year, for the interim housing assistance program. This will provide crucial assistance to provinces and municipalities as they facilitate integration. Plus précisément, ce financement...
Specifically, this funding will be used to reach funding agreements with the cities of Toronto and the province of Quebec, where costs related to asylum applications can be taken care of.
I was able to discuss during my appearance how international students will drive our economic recovery, as well as our 2020 levels plan, which is the blueprint for us to continue growing the country through immigration. In closing, Madam Chair, I want to emphasize that we've learned a lot over the last several months. We're adapting, accelerating, and evolving our immigration system in a way that it should inspire confidence among Canadians. Canada has long benefited from immigration, and the same will hold true as we restart the economy and boldly chart out our future. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you, Minister. Thanks for the opening remarks. And now we will go into the first round of questioning. And the floor is over to Mr. Kent for 6 minutes. So, Mr. Kent, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Minister, for making that long walk across. I wish we had been able to arrange for you to appear in place originally. And I think, despite the finest efforts of the staff here on the Hill, the deficiencies of virtual committee meetings, virtual appearances have been laid clear by this almost an hour delay in getting the committee going today. Minister, the Prime Minister's 4-year suspension of the Safe Third Country Treaty has left Canada with an asylum backlog of more than 90,000. That's the highest in Canada's history. The Parliamentary Budget Officer's report, Costing Irregular Migration Across Canada's Southern Border, pointed out that your government has provided no guidance regarding the reimbursement of outstanding and future support expenses for asylums that is burdening cities and provinces. So with regards to that $200 million line item in the supplementary estimates for the housing of asylum claimants, can you explain more specifically where those dollars are going? As I said earlier in questions to you in the virtual committee in the House, this would seem to be a very small down payment on the costs assumed so far by municipalities and provinces and their estimates of significant millions of dollars going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Kent, for the question. And I'll begin by just expanding that the supplementary estimate request that we put in today will be allocated towards the interim housing assistance program, which is a crucial initiative that does facilitate the cooperation that exists between the federal level of government, provinces, and the municipalities. As I said, we've seen a number of municipalities who have played a significant role in enhancing the integration of our asylum seekers and refugees. And I would just say that the request that we have put into through the supplementary estimates builds on the $370 million which has already been invested in interim housing. In addition to that, we had launched approximately a year and a half ago a border enforcement strategy with an investment of $1.2 billion to not only advance the priorities of facilitating integration through interim housing and health for refugees and asylum seekers, but also to maintain that integrity in the border. And I'm confident that these are important initiatives which will contribute to our asylum system, which is revered around the world.
Thank you, Minister. Now, the City of Toronto has something looking at $150 million back due with similar amounts ongoing, so I would hope that you would address those issues in the days, weeks, and months ahead. Now, Minister, you spoke to the willingness of some asylum claimants, a significant number of asylum claimants in Quebec, to continue working in high-risk, long-term care home facilities, including some claimants whose claims have been rejected. And we know that you're under pressure from some of your Quebec cabinet colleagues to suspend the normal protocols of the Immigration and Refugee Board to accommodate asylum claimants who are working in those frontline care facilities. Can you tell us where you are in your policy development today? Are you looking to override the normal protocols and processes of the IRB?
Thank you, Mr. Candid. It allows me the opportunity to shed some additional light on the sacrifices that have been made by asylum seekers. As I pointed out in my introductory remarks, these are individuals who often overcome tremendous adversity just to get to Canada. As you well know, and other members of this committee will know, these are individuals who are fleeing persecution, conflict, war, and increasingly climate change, and so have sought safe harbor in Canada. Now, it is true that there is a process by which those claims are adjudicated, and the Immigration Refugee Board is charged with that responsibility. The individuals that have come to light in Quebec are stepping up in very significant ways, particularly in retirement homes. And I would just point out that asylum seekers who often are living in shelters, living in precarious housing, are already exposed and vulnerable to COVID-19. And notwithstanding that, and notwithstanding any of the debate which has followed as a result of that, they continue to sacrifice themselves to support frontline healthcare workers, to aid the elderly and the sick, who again are disproportionately bearing the burden of this awful virus. And so the debate that we have engaged on is whether or not there is a way to recognize those contributions, and certainly I hope to have more to say about that in due course.
But, Minister, you are aware that under the Canada-Quebec Accord, and given that this is essentially a Quebec issue and the pressure is coming from advocates in the province of Quebec, Quebec has the power to use its jurisdiction to provide whatever comfort that province may seem as adequate.
Well, you make reference to the Canada-Quebec Accord, and I would point out that this is a well-established agreement which works well for both the Government of Canada as well as the Government of Quebec. There are clearly delineated responsibilities around economic immigration, as well as refugees and asylum seekers, which remains within the remit of the Government of Canada. And so at all stages, we continue to collaborate and communicate very closely with the Government of Quebec, who is also, I understand, considering this issue. And as I said, I hope to have an update in the not-too-distant future.
Thank you.
Your time is up, Mr. Kent, and now we will move to MP Surrey. You have 6 minutes.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Minister, for taking the time and to come see us. I thank you for the work you have been doing and your personnel with the immigration system in Canada. It's very important for our country. My program is related to the program for a rural and northern immigration program.
Because we've heard from MPs, we've heard from mayors, municipalities, Chamber of Commerce, and employers the need for workers. And the provincial nominee program, doesn't meet the needs of the employers in Northern Ontario. 98% of the provincial nominee immigration goes to Southern Ontario, very little to Northern Ontario. So I just want you to take the time here to go over the rural immigration pilot projects. I know with COVID has kind of changed the landscape on the immigration side a wee bit here, and I want you to be able to update the committee on where the rural and northern immigration pilot project is at, and how that is helping to get to pathways to permanent residencies for our residents and support our employers locally in Northern Ontario.
Premièrement, merci pour la question.
Well, thank you for your question, Mr. Serre, and also for your work in your writing. It's such important work. We know immigration contributes greatly to the economy of the country. And that's one of the reasons we have set up this pilot project to welcome immigrants who want to begin the next chapter of their lives in rural communities. We rely on the expertise, the experience for rural communities to align the experience of immigrants to the local community needs.
rural and northern immigration pilot is one of those innovations which seeks to tap into the expertise of rural communities, the experiences, the needs, and to align those needs with the skill set of those who wish to start the next chapter of their lives in rural communities. And I'm very pleased to report that 9 of the 11 communities involved have launched their pilot already. So this is a good news story. It's one that I hope that all parliamentarians will share in celebrating, and obviously there's more work to be done.
Thank you. And also, been hearing from employers. Specifically, they're looking at, I got a mining company here in Northern Ontario in Greater Sudbury that wants to bring in an engineer from Venezuela. But because of COVID and the challenges, the English test cannot be done in person. Is there anything that we could do as a government to support the employer and support the skilled candidate that wants to come to Northern Ontario, Greater Sudbury, by completing the English test online somehow?
Well, you raise a really important point, and that is that COVID-19 has created certain disruptions within our immigration system. But, I will say that the department has looked at ways to stand up new alternative processes, in particular around moving applications forward electronically and remotely where we can. We've provided our staff and our officials with the additional technological tools that they need to overcome some of that disruption. And when it comes to testing and other milestones which have to be reached in order to move aspiring immigrants who wish to come to Canada to ply their trade, whether it's in engineering or whether it's in a skill in a trade, we continue to explore ways in which we can do that. And again, just a real testament to Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, who I think has shown great resilience throughout the course of managing this pandemic.
Thank you. Also now with international students, so Greater Sudbury and my riding Nickel Belt, we have Laurentian University, Cambridge College, Collège Boréal. Together, the 3 post-secondary institutions, which are bilingual also, have about 2,000 students, international students. And with the COVID and the uncertainty of the school year, I want to take the opportunity here if you could elaborate what we are doing to support international students and also supporting the colleges and the communities that have these important students in our community and getting educated and also hopefully staying in the long run also.
Well, as I've testified before this committee, international students bring tremendous benefits to Canada economically, socially, culturally, and as a result of that reality, we have certainly looked to continue the great successes of the international student program, notwithstanding the challenges that COVID-19 has presented to us. So we do continue to certainly partner very closely with universities and colleges right across the country, not just in large cities, but in small and medium-sized municipalities as well, many of whom require this cohort, require international students to come and attend and take that next step in their career by acquiring a first-rate educational experience here in Canada. We've made a number of modifications to the program to account for, again, the disruption. We have created more flexibility within the work permits that attach to international student visas for those who are taking a degree and are working in an essential services sector. And I think the health sector is a prime example of that. We've also provided provided some relaxation when it comes to online education because campuses remain closed. And so for those who are here, they'll be able to take their courses up to 100% online without any penalty to their postgraduate work experience.
Thank you, Minister. Your time is up. We will now move on to Ms. Normandine. Ms. Normandine, you have 6 minutes.
Merci. Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Minister, for being here with us. I'm pleased to see you today, especially in person. I will follow the line of questioning from my colleague, even if that wasn't my initial plan. That's on foreign students. You spoke about students that are already here, but I would like to hear what you have to say on students that we're waiting for, and that about 20-25% of the CEGEP and university students in the regions. Currently, they cannot have their biometrics done. We don't know if the application for student permits would be handled in time for the next school year. So what do we do with students who are still outside and that have to be in here for the fall? First of all, I'm pleased to be here in person to answer your questions. Thank you, Madam Normandine. As I said, foreign students bring great economic and social-cultural advantages to Canada. International students that had valid permits or that had been approved for a student permit when these travel restrictions came into force, March 18, 2020, they can travel to Canada by air or by land. We are still assessing the impacts of the current situation, and we will make the necessary adjustments along the way. For your specific question, we are still seeking solutions for biometrics. And there are some other examples of other immigration categories, like temporary foreign workers, where we have created some flexibilities, and your suggestion is one of the ideas that we could look further into. So I was thinking about the essential workers. There was a directive that was put forward during the crisis that an essential worker here, if they applied for a work permit, it would be handled within 10 days. This was done within the context of the crisis. But we do notice that when the application is made on paper, it's impossible or almost impossible to find the paper file and handle it quickly. So I'm thinking about a nurse from Venezuela that I know who applied in February, and she has not been handled. Doctors in Salaberry Valleyfield who applied in April, and their cases have not been handled. They are expected to show up in the hospitals. Would you agree, Mr. Minister, that the directive put in place was simply impossible to implement? No, the short answer is it's not impossible. As I've mentioned several times, the ministers have put in place measures to assist temporary visitors, workers, and students. There is a lot more flexibility within the system to accelerate the approval of these applications before the COVID-19. If you had applied for a work permit, you needed several months for categories of workers in essential services. We have a process that is much faster currently, but I do understand that there's a lot of pressure in terms of those priorities, and we will continue working on them. I would like to bring you for a demand from Quebec that goes back to February and even before, that the handling of files for foreign workers should be done only by Quebec. I think this request was made by Mr. Legault's government and Minister Jean Barrette, and we saw during the crisis that there was lack of flexibility in working permits that caused several problems. For example, a corporation that has prepared the seedling cannot really get planting. A business that has shut its doors, somebody who was working there cannot go suddenly to work in another company. Is the minister more open since this crisis to transfer the responsibility of the foreign workers to Quebec jurisdiction? I've had several discussions with my Quebec counterpart, Mr. Jean Barrette, and I think there is a good level of cooperation between our two teams, especially on the issue of foreign workers. The reason for this collaboration is because we do understand that there are several challenges related to labor shortages. There are needs within the Quebec economy that have to be filled. So this program of support for temporary foreign workers, it's a very important need for the government of Quebec. We will be there to work with them, and we will maintain discussions with the Quebec government while waiting for an agreement on the responsibility for temporary workers. I've often proposed that we could have a certain number of days that allow you to work for another employer to compensate the delay in handling a new permit to face an emergency situation. What does the minister feel about this proposal? Well, it's a good suggestion, but at the same time, as I said, we have created a lot of flexibility within the system, so we can assess that as a possibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Normandine. Just a quick reminder to everyone, to all the members, please direct the questions through the chair. Next, we have Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan, you have 6 minutes.
Thanks very much, Madam Chair, and thank you, Minister, for taking the time to be here in person with us. On April 24th, Minister, you were before the HUMA Committee, where you said, quote, "My understanding after engaging with CRA and ESDC is that if individuals in question meet the criteria for eligibility under the CERB, they can apply using their SIN, which does not expire for tax purposes, regardless of their status of their work permit. Depending on the situation, they might or might not be able to apply online, but they will be able to do so through the call center," end quote. So on this basis, can the minister confirm that those who otherwise meet the eligibility criteria for CERB, and I'm referring to TFWs in this instance, that even with an expired work permit, that they would not be criminalized for receiving CERB?
Well, set aside the last part of your question around criminalization, which I'll come back to, but my short answer is yes.
Sorry, but the not setting aside the criminalization, because Bill 17 is before us, and if that goes through, criminalization may well take place. That's why I'm asking that question.
So my understanding is that yes, that as long as temporary foreign workers meet all of the other requirements of the eligibility for CERB, that they would be entitled to receive it. And with regards to any consequences that would flow from a breach of the program, again, they would be responsible and accountable as anyone else would. In other words, immigration status would not differentiate the treatment of those who violated one of the terms of the program.
Okay, excellent. So my understanding then, expire work permits.
That's my understanding. I should just. I'm sorry, Ms. Kwan, and I'm saying that with some trepidation because I would want to be absolutely certain about that, and I'm happy to consult with my colleague, Minister Qualtrough, to provide a firm answer to you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your answer because I think that is actually very important because people acted on the basis of the advice from government, including yourself, Minister, and if they, after the fact now, are being penalized, I can't imagine what that means really for people, and that would be outrageous if that were to take place. So now, on the separate question, Minister, I wrote to you back in April around this. I finally got a response from you this morning, so I appreciate that. And I was asking about the 24-month work requirement that are interrupted for temporary foreign workers, and more specifically for the caregivers. The response that you gave me does not address the heart of the issue, and that is for individuals whose work permit is coming to expiration and they have lost their job because of COVID. Can they then, on this basis, Minister, apply for a renewed work permit and get implied status, even though they don't have an employer at this time?
Ms. Kwan, again, you raise an important issue, and I realize that the response is still forthcoming on that. I will say, as I've said before, that we are looking at ways to mitigate the disruptive effect of COVID-19, including those who have had to remain in Canada and have seen their visas expire. There are many cases where we are extending those visas, and we continue to look at broader policy solutions on the question that you've posed.
Well, I would urge the minister to actually count the interrupted time for these caregivers towards their 24-month work requirement. And then also on the question of expired work permits, for those individuals, because they're caught in a very difficult situation right now, where they have lost their job because of COVID-19, not through any fault of their own, and their work permits coming to an expiration. If they don't find a new employer, and it's difficult to do so at this time, they would be out of luck. They would not be able to get implied status. So it would be essential for them to be supported through this time. Otherwise, these workers have come to take care of our families here in Canada, are pretty well just left out in the cold. So I would urge the minister to take action on that. With respect to delay in spousal sponsorships, early in the pandemic, I was informed that applications would continue to be processed, and however, as the pandemic continue, issues and challenges with processing of applications continue to emerge, and as a result, my office is receiving numerous individuals faced with long and lengthy delays in their PR applications. And this is specifically to do with spousal sponsorships, where the standard time of processing is 12 months. Mr. Mitch Hurley and his spouse have tragically lost their newborn child as his wife was unable to get health care in Ecuador. And they're desperately awaiting to be reunited here during this difficult time. Their application has been in process for 16 months, and they cannot get an interview so that they can finish the application. And now they're required to extend their expired medical exams, which is very expensive and costly. So I'm asking the minister this question: can families with urgent needs have their applications expedited in processing, and will the government waive the requirement for new medical examinations as a result of this lengthy delay?
For the answer.
Okay. I'm clearly that's an important question, Ms. Kwan, and I don't want to do a disservice to it. I've taken note of both. We have to balance our desire to reunite families as quickly as possible with the ongoing health concerns that COVID-19 presents, and certainly that is a balance we attempt to strike every day.
Maybe we can come back to that afterwards. So your time is up, Ms. Kwan. With this, we end our 6-minute round, and now we will be moving to the 5-minute round of questioning. So we will start with Mr. Chiu. Mr. Chiu, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Minister, for coming. As a rookie MP, I'm at the shock right now that we're discussing a supplementary estimates of a budget that has not even been tabled in the House of Commons here, and yet we're talking about increasing beyond that estimates. It's such a learning experience here. But the supplementary estimates in 2020-2021 do not allocate any new monies to the Immigration and Refugee Board. Considering that the IRB suspends its operation for all in-person hearings and mediations, other than detention reviews and some admissibility hearings, does the minister foresee an increase in the IRB budget?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chiu. And as I mentioned earlier, the Immigration Refugee Board is charged with a significant mandate to adjudicate asylum claims, and those claims are at a level that does require sufficient funding. I made reference to the border enforcement strategy, part of which went towards ensuring that we can attack that backlog, and that is work that continues. And certainly this year has been disruptive because of COVID-19, but our government will take the steps that are necessary to invest properly in the Immigration Refugee Board so that each and every claimant can have a hearing in a reasonable time frame.
Oh, thank you, Minister. In the meanwhile, there are still flights that during the past few months had taken refugees, asylum seekers from Hong Kong. The Hong Kong government is in the process of imposing a Communist Chinese drafted new national security law in the territory, jeopardizing individual freedoms and expressions, speech, association, and political participation. Now, immigration law experts are suggesting potential immigration claims originating from Hong Kong will not meet the criteria of Canada's express entry system, making it very difficult for many to leave the territory. What options will Canadian immigration officials provide to assist these Hong Kong residents in safely immigrating to Canada if they do not meet ordinary refugee status requirement?
Thank you, Mr. Chiu, and I would just simply echo that we remain very concerned about the situation in Hong Kong. We are monitoring it very closely. For those who are Canadian, as I have said before and other representatives within our government have said before, they do reserve the right to return to Canada, so they do not need to find an immigration pathway. However, they would have to subject to all of the healthcare screens which are in place upon that return. For those who are foreign nationals who wish to come to Canada, there are numerous pathways by which they can accomplish that goal. You mentioned the express entry. I would just urge against any assumptions around their eligibility to avail themselves of that pathway. But certainly, if you are encountering individual cases where you see a problem or a pattern recurring, my office is open to hearing about those concerns.
Thank you, Minister. Will Immigration and Citizenship adopt a lifeboat policy for those who have been unjustly arrested and charged in Hong Kong for crimes that do not have a comparable criminal law here in Canada, who these people are wanting to seek asylum in Canada?
Mr. Chu, as you know, in order to be able to immigrate to Canada or to come to Canada at all, there are certain admissibility requirements that everyone must subject to. So for those individuals who have committed crimes abroad that are obviously recognized under Canadian law, they cannot and should not be allowed to enter. However, I would point out that as part of my mandate, I am to look at creating a new pathway for human rights activists, and that is something that I hope to be able to update members of this committee as well as the House of Commons over the course of some time.
Many Canadians fear for the safety of their families overseas. With the supplementary estimates, will the department have enough financial resources to create a program to bring the family members of Canadians safely to Canada so they do not have to suffer unjust persecutions in their homeland?
Well, in broad terms, Mr. Chu, as I've already mentioned, we have an asylum system that does allow those fleeing persecution and conflict to come to Canada. There is a process that is in place to assess those claims that is carried out by the Immigration and Refugee Board, and we are making the necessary investments in the IRB and in our asylum system, which again does set a gold standard in my view around the world. And I'm proud of
Sorry, Minister, for interrupting, but please wind up. Time is up.
No, I'm happy to leave it there, Madam Chair.
Okay, sorry for that. So with that, we will now move on to Ms. Martinez Ferrada for 5 minutes. So, floor is yours for 5 minutes.
Oui, merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to share my time with my colleague from Orléans on this question. Thank you, Mr. Minister, for your presence here. We know that this pandemic throughout the world has had terrible impacts on immigration systems throughout the world, and some situations have had significant impact on the Canadian immigration system, and you have touched on some measures throughout your presentation and answering questions, but I would like to hear some more detail from you on the challenges faced by the Immigration Department and also the adjustments that were put in place. You spoke about the issue of temporary foreign workers, but I think that there are significant actions that have been taken to help the full immigration system and different procedures, and also describe some of the measures taken currently in deconfinement. How do we get back to an immigration system that is quote-unquote normal? What measures can you describe to us that can facilitate immigration processes? First of all, thank you, Madam Martinez Ferrada, for your question and for all the work you have been doing with our team and the members of this committee. There are several examples where the ministers within the department have created or developed new processes. They used new technologies. They set up new teams with the mandate to implement priorities and the urgent, pressing needs within the country.
Highlight a number of the ways in which our department has responded to COVID-19. As I've said, we've truly evolved in a number of ways. We've leveraged new technologies. We've set up new processes. We've stood up tiger teams to ensure that the urgent needs of Canadians around food, around fuel, around health supplies and medical supplies are still flowing across our international borders. That is a real demonstration, a concrete demonstration of the way that that our department has proven to be very resilient, that are meeting the needs of Canadians. And in the long run, I believe that we will be able to take some of those lessons and apply them equally to our longer-term plans when it comes to immigration, which of course are captured by our 3-year levels plan.
Combien de temps qu'il me reste?
So how much time do I have left?
Madame Lalonde.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today. As you well know, the COVID-19 pandemic has presented challenges throughout the government apparatus, especially within your department, Mr. Minister. You've had to face all the constraints brought about these changes.
Talk to us was about border closures, how, within the commonplace around the world, this has been a public health situation where we had to make decisions here in Canada and as we've seen around the world to keep Canadians safe. Maybe tell us a little bit more about the circumstances surrounding the closure of the Canada-U.S. border, and also the consideration and the adjustment, actually, that were needed to maintain the functionality of the border that sustains our Canadian industries.
Thank you for the question. And certainly the interim non-essential travel ban, which we have entered into on a reciprocal basis with the United States, is truly an extraordinary moment. I think it demonstrates the high degree of collaboration that exists between our two countries as we share the longest unguarded border in the world. It has proven to effectively eradicate all non-essential travel, and for good reason. You asked about what is the context in which we've arrived at this interim agreement. It's, as I said, to help reduce the risk of the spread of COVID-19, which has proven to be very contagious. So one of the ways in which we have accomplished that goal is by coming up with this agreement. It's extended for another 30 days, and it's an agreement that has worked well to protect the health and safety of all Canadians.
Minister, your time is up. Your time is up. We will have to now move on to Mr. Hallen. Mr. Hallen, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Minister, for being here, and also thank you again to your staff for all the help throughout this process that we're all going through. The supplementary estimates ask for an allocation of $200 million to the Interim Housing Assistance Program. When was the Minister first aware that a significant allocation in the magnitude of hundreds of millions of dollars for the program would be necessary?
The short answer, Mr. Holland, and thank you as well for the kind remarks at the outset, is that this is an ongoing priority, that our need to invest in interim housing and supports to facilitate the integration of asylum seekers and refugees is one that we have been collaborating with provinces and municipalities for some time. So it's an ongoing need.
Okay, so the departmental plan indicates a significant net decrease from the 2019-20 forecast spending to the 2021 budgetary spending total. The plan attributes the significant net decrease largely to grants and contributions related to the interim housing program and the initiatives for the resettlement of Syrian refugees, for which funding would have ended on March 31st, 2020. Can the Minister confirm that this funding was set to expire March 31st, 2020?
Yes, and that doesn't obviate the need for us to continually assess what the needs of provinces and municipalities are. But you're quite right in your summary. Part of the reason why we were adjusting those funding levels was to reflect the fact that the significant work that had gone into the Syrian resettlement program was starting to sunset, but that in no way has altered significantly the rate at which we have seen asylum seekers come to Canada. Now, 2020 will prove to be an exceptional year for the obvious reason that there has been much in the way of disruption around travel. But our commitment to having a robust asylum system remains, and that requires the investments which are outlined in the supplementary estimates, which I hope to bring forward shortly.
Thank you. So knowing that this funding was going to end, was there always an intent to request additional funding, grants and contributions related to this program?
Well, again, Mr. Hallan, as I said, these are ongoing needs. We are continually assessing internally within our department what are the appropriate allocations, what are the appropriate funding levels. Part of this is also driven by events, which can be difficult to predict, as we have seen. And so there is, I think, an exercise that does require both taking a look at historic levels and needs, which I believe are informed by the evidence, by the data and the statistics around what are the rates at which we are seeing asylum seekers come to Canada, as well as by sometimes circumstances which may be difficult to anticipate.
Thank you. So the 2018-19 departmental results report states that up to $474 million was previously set aside to provide financial support to affected provinces and municipalities for interim housing costs incurred. Has all of the $474 million been spent?
Well, my recollection is that the answer is no, but that does, again, not mean that we should not be bringing forward the supplementary estimates request. I will defer to my officials if they have a more precise answer on that question.
Yes, Madam Chair. The department will have spent, as of June 2020, $371.5 million in interim housing so far.
We have 40 seconds.
Okay. So thank you for that. So can the minister please provide an update on the anticipated immigration levels for this year?
Quick 30-second answer.
Very briefly, Mr. Hallan, I hope to have a comprehensive update in the fall. But in the meantime, I want to assure members of this committee that we continue to land immigrants as a result of the alternative processes that our department has stood up throughout COVID-19. And we are very concerned that immigration continues to be a draw for economic immigrants, that allows us to reunite families, and that it allows us to live up to the long-standing tradition that we will protect the world's most vulnerable.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you. Now we will move on to Ms. Shanahan. Welcome to CIMM committee today. Ms. Shanahan, you have 5 minutes.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Merci, Monsieur.
Madam Chair, thank you, Minister. Very pleased to be here with you today. And I would like to take a moment to thank the citizens of Châteauguay-Lacolle because 3 years ago, roughly in the month of August 2017, when we received the call that there was a strong presence of asylum seekers at the borders, it was my residents at Saint-Bernard-de-la-Colle that were really at the front lines to build tents. There were several that work at customs, immigrations, and the RCMP. It was an incredible example of collaboration with the elected officials in Saint-Bernard-de-Colle and the residents in Chemin-Roxane. We know since then there has been some variability in the number of persons coming across the border. There has been a reduction. Can the minister give us an update? Just before the COVID, what were the figures roughly? just before the outbreak on the issues of irregular immigration. Yes, asylum seekers, that's before COVID-19. Well, on that issue, over the last 2-3 years, maybe, I believe there has been a downward curve. I believe it's because we made investments for border protection to make sure that our officials had the necessary resources.
Numbers around irregular immigration went down for approximately 2 or 3 years in the lead up to COVID-19. And we can certainly verify precisely what those numbers are, but they went down from approximately 20,000 to 19,000 to 18,000 year over year, in that range.
Okay, merci beaucoup. And in fact, we're very proud also in Chateauguay-Lacal that we've received, I think it's 5 families now, Syrian refugee families, and we're still waiting for a family. So the people in my riding are very proud of their welcoming attitude. It is going to be World Refugee Day on Saturday. Minister, I'm sure you're well aware, and Canada has always been a global leader when it comes to the resettlement of people facing conflict and turmoil. Can you speak to some of Canada's actions, both domestically and abroad, in regards to what has been done to help refugees reach our country?
Well, thank you for the question and for foreshadowing what should be a happy day, because Canada's contributions in this space are ones that we should all be proud of. And just concretely, first and foremost, we have continued to help resettle refugees and asylum seekers, notwithstanding the challenges in the pandemic. I also would just take a moment to highlight that we are looking at ways to strengthen our relationship with refugees so that they can play an active voice in the creation of our policies, and really creating that space so that that there is a real purchase into this effort by the refugee community. I can think of several examples, including Mustafa Aiello, who heads up an organization called Jumpstart. And the purpose of this organization is to help encourage refugees to be self-starters and to be entrepreneurs. And again, for me, and I hope all members will share in this sentiment, it's about really combating the discrimination, the stigma that we see that far too often is attributed to refugees, and that somehow they are just simply a burden to our society. They're not. Refugees are our neighbors. They are prepared to contribute. They are prepared to contribute and sacrifice when we need it the most. And we've seen that in some very, very visible ways in Quebec, but right across the country. So I hope all members will be quite proud in celebrating World Refugee Day this weekend.
Quick question then on temporary foreign workers. What were the biggest challenges when COVID hit and we knew we needed those workers on our Quebec farms? What was the biggest challenge for you?
Making sure they could arrive in a safe and orderly manner in a way that was consistent with the restrictions that we had to put into place. So
To explain it, indeed.
I think I answered the question. It was concise, but I answered the question.
Sorry for that. Sorry for interrupting.
Yes.
Maybe someone else can raise it in their time.
Yes.
So we will now move on to Ms. Normandine. You have 2.5 minutes.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. A question quickly. Before the crisis, we had already asked for the creation of an immigration ombudsman. The MP's office is currently receiving complaints, questions, commentaries relating to the lack of answers from the department. And since this crisis is slowing down, and this is what we hear very often in our offices, I don't see any appropriations for the creation of an ombudsman's office. Is the minister thinking of this? No, Madame Normandie, not yet, but we do have another agency that's in place to make sure that there is confidence in our immigration system.
We are on the precipice of giving a college of immigration consultants all of the necessary powers around maintaining a high degree of professional standards when it comes to giving advice to those who wish to navigate our immigration system. And certainly that will be one way in which we can maintain a high degree of integrity in the system.
Parfait. Une autre question?
Great. I know that you want to do the transition to digital systems for handling files. I'm thinking specifically of simple administrative files such as work permits. My fear is that the files that are currently on paper are somewhat set aside. Do you wish to digitalize existing files as you strive for new technologies?
Wishing my deputy minister was here in person so I could see her smile. We may see her smile on the screen. But yes, I think that COVID-19 has presented us with an opportunity to digitally transform the way that we do business in IRCC right from A to Z. And I just will tell you that those are conversations which we are embarking on with great haste so that we can provide the best quality of service to our clients, namely aspiring new Canadians and visitors.
Parfait. Parfait. Donc, est-ce qu'on peut espérer?
So, could we then hope an implementation this year of new technological tools for handling files? Certainly.
We'll now move on to Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan, you have 2.5 minutes for your question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Parents and Grandparents Sponsorship Program is supposed to be open for application in January and is now June, and the government website still states, quote, details and opening date for the 2020 Parents and Grandparents Program will be posted on this site when details are confirmed, end quote. When will this program be opened, and will the government still honor the quota for this stream this year?
Ms. Kwan, the general language on the website that you referred to reflects that we are still in a period of great disruption within our work, as I've outlined. So as soon as we have an update on the Parents and Grandparents Program, we will provide it. I know that it's an important priority for your community as many others. And as far as achieving the level, I will have an update on that in the fall.
Given the pandemic, the immigration's levels would be impacted, so I'm going to look forward to that update. Now, the international community are very concerned about the Chinese government's national security law for the people of Hong Kong, and that it would mean the end of the one country, two system Sino agreement that has been signed. Close to 900 international parliamentarians have signed a statement condemning this action, and the UK government has launched a plan for 2.9 million British national overseas passport holders to move from Hong Kong to the UK with a work visa. Working with the international community, would the minister consider bringing forward a special immigration measure for the people of Hong Kong, including possibly working with the UK government to accept asylum seekers from Hong Kong?
Certainly, as I've said, we are profoundly concerned with the situation in Hong Kong, and anything that would detract from the one country, two systems principle which Canada supports. As far as initiatives are concerned, as I've said, for Canadians, there is a right of return subject to health screens, and for other foreign nationals, there are many pathways. Now, I am aware of this example that you raised today in the United Kingdom. I'm unaware of what the details are, but certainly, all I will say is that there are pathways that do exist, various pathways for those who wish to relocate to Canada, either on a temporary or a permanent basis, that they can avail themselves of.
Is there any consideration for special measures, new measures, both on the immigration stream or the asylum stream for the people of Hong Kong?
Okay.
Just yes or no?
You just like to give a brief.
Ms. Kwan, we're monitoring the situation very closely.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you to all the committee members. And with this, the first hour of the meeting comes to an end. I thank you, Minister, for appearing before the committee. Sorry for those technological issues, but it was good to have you in person. Of course, members would have must have liked this option of your coming in. So I really thank you on behalf of all the members for appearing before the committee today. So with this, I will suspend the committee meeting for a few minutes so that we allow the minister to leave and allow MP Barrett to take the seat. So it will take a few minutes while we sanitize the desk and start. So the officials will be here. Yeah, the officials will be here for the second hour, and once we have allowed the minister to leave and the MP to take back, we will get to the second hour of the meeting. So with this, I will suspend the meeting. Thank you, Minister. to order, and now we will go into the second hour of this meeting, and we have four officials. Katrina Tapley, Deputy Minister from IRCC, Marianne Campbell Jarvis, Assistant Deputy Minister, Daniel Mills, Assistant Deputy Minister. It appears that Mr. Mills is having some issues, so we will see when he can join. And the last witness is Hugh St. Perry, also Assistant Deputy Minister. I welcome you all. Thank you for coming before the committee. So Ms. Martinez-Ferreira has a question. Yes, please.
Just a comment quickly. And maybe we should put this in the minutes, official minutes of our meeting. Thank Mr. Barrett for generously offering his spot to the minister earlier. I would like this to be reflected in the minutes of our meeting.
Yes, I indicated when we started the meeting with the minister. So thank you, Mr. Barrett, for voluntarily agreeing to allow the minister to take your seat. So now we have MP Michael Barrett again back with us. So, Mr. Kent, you have a question?
Yes, I'll be leading this round, Clerk.
Okay. So,
Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Kent. So, with this, we will go into the round of questioning, and the first one will be Mr. Kent. Mr. Kent, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Deputy Minister, and to the officials with you here this afternoon. Deputy, now that the COVID-19 crisis and the lockdown is easing more in some parts of the country than in others, I wonder if you can tell us what percentage of IRCC employees are now back at work or effectively working from home?
Madam Chair, thank you for the question. Currently, we're at about 72% of our employees who are either working from home or in the workplace. The number working in the workplace is quite small. It's only about 2 or 3% of our employees. And we are beginning now the process of bringing people back into the work site. And as you can imagine, there are some challenges with that. And it will be a while before we are all back into the work site, but we have identified priorities and we're bringing people back into those sites safely.
Certainly you appreciate, I'm sure you're hearing, as most members of Parliament are hearing from constituents and those in Canada and those beyond, there is great interest in when, for example, the family reunification, the spousal process will pick up, as we discussed in the last hour, but also questions about when Passport Canada will be fully functional.
Both of those are excellent questions. Maybe I'll just go first to the question on family reunification. So we're working to identify a good path. We're continuing to process applications in the meantime. The only applications that we've put a pause on are those temporary resident visas. The rest of the applications we continue to process. And those that are paper-based have been more difficult to get to than those that are electronic. As the Minister has indicated, if we ever needed additional oomph behind our need to move more fully to digitization, this has certainly been it. The second question about Passport, we're working closely with our colleagues at Service Canada to try and get this back up and running as quickly as we can.
Thank you. Now, at this time of massive government spending, some of it which is essential, much of it which we in the official opposition have supported and encouraged expansion in some areas and also adjustment in others. But at the same time, where some spending, until we return to fully responsible government and accountability with standing committees and the normal debates of Parliament, all of this notwithstanding, last week we learned of a potentially massive new set of expenses for the department in a request for proposals tender, which was in an annex in the procurement section of Public Works Canada titled Digital Services Urgent for COVID-19. This document references a new normal that the document anticipates a surge in applications and tremendous demand, it says, after the COVID-19 restrictions are lifted, which suggests that the department might feel that it will be overwhelmed when this COVID crisis is past. And it calls for proposals to completely overhaul and digitally update the way the department processes all of its applications and does all of its work in Canada and abroad. Can you give us any sort of ballpark estimate of what sort of spending is going to be involved in this proposal, in these projects?
Thank you again, Madam Chair. So I think people may have been a little carried away with their words just as part of that proposal. So we do anticipate an increase in applications once the crisis has abated and once we return to whatever the next normal might look like. So we do anticipate an increase in applications. Applications have been down during this period. And as I indicated, some were not processing, like temporary resident visas. That our IT system needs work is no secret. The global case management system has served us well, but it is reaching the end of its useful life. And so investing in the system, investing in the means to make applications more efficient and better client service is something that has been ongoing for quite a while. We do have some resources that we're able to dedicate to this already. We always hope for more when it comes to revamping our IT system, but we are using resources that have already been identified. If I may, Mr. Saint-Pierre, did you want to add anything to that?
No, that's a pretty complete answer, Deputy.
30 seconds.
I have nothing further to add, Deputy.
Well, then, very briefly, Minister, I've got 30 seconds left. The department had been planning to welcome 341,000 new permanent residents in 2020. What are your estimates today in the number of new permanent residents that will be accepted to the country?
The Minister indicated we'll have a better update in the fall. I think it's safe to say it's doubtful we are going to meet 341,000. It's difficult to say what an estimate might be, given that there are so many uncertainties on travel plans, so many uncertainties in other countries that affect people's ability to complete their application. But I want to be clear, we have continued to process applications and we are continuing to land individuals during this period.
Thank you. The time is up, so we will move on to Ms. Lalonde. You have 6 minutes.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
On our behalf of all of us, I would say thank you for all the work that has been done in the past few weeks, and certainly representing the wonderful community of Orléans, for all our public servants who are doing extraordinary work and that we are celebrating this week. Merci. C'est vraiment un plaisir.
It's a pleasure to work with you every day, and there are a lot of challenges to be taken up.
To ask the minister about the Canada-U.S. border, and I couldn't ask my follow-up, and maybe you can sort of share with us as we have moved forward in the extension of the border restriction. We've also brought in exemptions. And, changes that have been made to accommodate our government's adherence for family reunification. And certainly at Orléans, it's been very well received. So maybe talk to us a little bit during today's committee on this perspective. Merci.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the kind wishes for National Public Service Week. We really appreciate that. The government announced a week or so ago that it had added additional exemptions for those coming to Canada to reunite with their, for the most part, with their Canadian spouse, although it includes other immediate family members as well. We're clear that people coming will need to be looking to come for a minimum of 15 days. They will be expected to self-quarantine for 14 days like others who are coming to join. And it's been, it has been well received, and we've seen the first groups of people come forward under that program or under that exemption.
Merci beaucoup. You know, there's been, as we know, immense challenge of the coronavirus pandemics, and certainly efforts to slow the spread of the virus have been put in place all over the world. Some of these situations has resulted in substantial changes to Canada's immigration system. Maybe touch base, and I know the minister did address that, but maybe continue to explain some of the departmental challenges and adjustments that have been taking place, and what is the current state of our IRCC that is now done, and sort of the new normacy that you're experiencing.
Thank you. The next normal is proving to be a bit challenging. So we looked at our lines of business kind of in different categories. So one is we worry about those newcomers, temporary foreign workers, other workers, visitors who are already here in Canada. So we put a number of measures in place to be able to extend work permits, to look at implied status, to make it easier for people in closed work permits to move from one employer to another with a job offer. So there have been a number of things that we put in place that way. The second is clearly around temporary foreign workers. We've put a number of measures in place to be able to accommodate demands, particularly with agricultural workers. So in some cases, we've looked at the first advent of a foil-less visa and accommodating that as part of a move to be able to make sure that people can arrive smoothly. The others we've done with our colleagues at the Canada Border Services Agency, some collection of biometrics on arrival, but we've also worked closely with other governments and with some of our partners to make sure that that things can continue to move. And the other is with respect to our immigration programs themselves. So for permanent residents, one of the things that we have been working hard at is something that we call virtual landings. And so being able to land people, especially those who are already in Canada. And so I think last week alone, we landed more than 5,000 new permanent residents to Canada. If your application was approved prior to March 18th, then you meet exemptions to travel from overseas. But there are many who've applied for permanent residence who are already in Canada, either former students or temporary foreign workers, and we're really concentrating on making sure that we can land those and land them smoothly. The other would be with respect to our citizenship ceremonies. And I'm really proud to say that we have found some accommodations around this, and we are doing a number of online ceremonies. I think we did about 300 online ceremonies or virtual citizenship ceremonies last week, and maybe I'll stop there.
Madam Chair, do I have? Oh, that's
30 seconds.
Okay. Thank you. Merci.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Lalonde. Now we will move on to Ms. Normandine. Ms. Normandine, you have 6 minutes.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Thank you once again for being here with us. A few questions relating to visas for temporary residents. I believe the processing has been slowed down and even stopped in some cases. So I was just wondering about foreign students. Several school establishments are receiving students, especially from places like Morocco, Senegal, Algeria, Guinea, and the regular processing of these applications requires 11 weeks for Morocco, 12 weeks for Senegal, 12 for Algeria, 13 for Guinea. So if you refer to this regular processing, it will be too late for the fall session. Does the department have a plan to accelerate the processing of these applications for study permits?
Process student applications throughout this period, and we are continuing to do so. We've put a number of accommodations in place with universities and colleges to make sure that online classes can continue, and that we've made accommodations around the postgraduate work permit so that people are not penalized for this online portion of their learning. The other I would note is many of our partners are now coming back up online. So visa application centers have started to reopen in China and South Korea and Vietnam and France and other parts of the Maghreb. And that's good news for students because it means we can collect biometrics that way and complete applications that are there.
Parfait. Ensuite, à cette question.
Then, as a follow-up on the biometrics data, there is no collection data for biometrics data throughout the country or in all countries, and this sometimes raises issues for students that have to travel to a different country to collect biometrics data. That could present a problem in the future. There are restrictions on international travel. This is one of the IRCC projects to open and certify more biometrics collection centers in the future. I'm even thinking of the issue that Cubans are facing right now. They have to travel to Trinidad and Tobago to look into biometrics data.
For the question about in-Canada biometrics collection, we worked really hard with our colleagues at Service Canada to be able to use Service Canada points of business to collect biometrics in Canada. So we had launched that a few months ago, and it has been working really, really well. So we are keen both Canada offices to reopen so we can continue with biometrics collection in Canada. In other areas, we work through third parties called visa application centers to collect biometrics abroad, and we are always pushing for ways that we can improve that and make it more client friendly.
Est-ce qu'on peut espérer?
So, could we then expect foreign students to be part of the exceptions, those that can see their biometrics data collected in Canada rather than from their countries of origin, for students that are currently outside and who would like to be here for the fall session?
For those who are outside of Canada and would like to be here for the fall session, as I indicated, a number of visa application centers are now reopening abroad, and so biometrics collection will not be an issue for those that have reopened. For those that haven't reopened, we're looking at this issue very carefully and trying to assess a number of options on how we can deal with this in a constructive way.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Now, questions on temporary foreign workers, those that are already here. There have been measures put in place so that essential quote-unquote workers can see an accelerated processing of the applications. But there are some workers that are not considered essential. I'm thinking about construction workers, landscaping, welders, people that are here that can currently benefit from the CERB in some cases, but upon the expiry of the CERB, they have no resources and they don't have a work permit. It's something that could accelerate the processing or handling of new applications, work permit applications for these workers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For those workers who are already in Canada, so we put in place measures to make sure that those with closed work permits can move to a new job. And we put exceptions around that and implied status during the interim period so they can start working quickly. For those who are here, temporary foreign workers who are here and not on a closed work permit, which is the vast majority, they're free to move from, they're free to find other employment and to take advantage of any opportunities that may come their way.
Est-ce que je peux vous demander des...
So could I ask you some more specifics on the exceptions that are currently made to these closed work permits?
Quick 10-second
So on the
answer.
closed, what the minister has indicated is that people can move employers now on a closed work permit, provided that they have a job offer.
Thank you. With this, Ms. Normandine, your time is up, and now we will move on to Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to the officials for joining us today. I would like to ask for individuals who have had their application in through the one-year window provision, if they have submitted their application before the deadline and it's been acknowledged by RCC that the application has been received, and yet it has not been finalized in its processing, will they still have their application honored even though the December deadline is coming up?
Mr. Kent? Mr. Kent? Who's next?
Line of our business are you referring?
I'm referring to the family reunification for refugee claimants under the one-year window of opportunity.
Yeah, and if those applications have been received and we have those applications in, even though they haven't been processed under the one-year application, if we've received them, they should be fine. I wonder if Mr. Mills would like to comment further on that.
The clock. Sorry, we have stopped the clock, so we can't hear.
Sorry, Madam
Dan?
Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, everything was frozen on my computer. So can you please repeat the question? I had a moment where everything was frozen, so I missed the question. Sorry about that.
Ms. Kwan, you can start again.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I hope I get extra time for this.
No, we will provide you.
Thank you. My question was about the one-year window of opportunity for refugee claimants. They have submitted their application and it's been in process for more than a year now. With the December deadline coming up, they're very worried that that application would be rejected because it's not yet been processed. And so I just want assurance that their application would not be rejected because of the deadline.
Madame Chair, à ce point-ci, il n'y a aucune application qui va...
If there is no application that will be rejected because of the COVID, so we are currently looking at the different options that we have before us to make sure that we can continue processing documents without any delays or without having any impact on the applicants.
The officials on this case and with the minister's office, this family actually submitted the application back in March of 2019 and is still in process. And the December deadline of this year is coming up, so it's very worrying for them. And I'm not sure if the delay is to do with COVID or something else because the application was submitted back last year. On to another issue.
We would be happy to look into that.
Thank you very much. On to another issue, Madam Chair, and this is about an ongoing question I've been asking about exempting emergency benefits for people with immigration processes in place so that they would not be penalized for financial inadmissibility because of the support that they're getting through the emergency benefits. Aside from CERB, to which the minister has indicated that people would not be penalized for receiving CERB, I have not been able to get a response from government or the minister to ensure that other emergency benefits that individuals receive would also be exempt from penalty as a result of COVID-19. Can I get the confirmation from the deputy now, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the purpose of family sponsorship, the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit...
Sorry, I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second. Not just for family sponsorship, but for all individuals who have an immigration process in place.
Yeah, we do not consider the Canada Emergency Response Benefit social assistance for any of our programs. There are some programs where sponsors have to meet a minimum income threshold, and that's still expected of them. But no, we do not consider these benefits to be social assistance.
Sorry, not just for CERB, but for all government emergency benefits.
And we're happy to get back again on this, but that is how we treat government response benefits under this. Marion Campbell-Jarvis, did you want to add anything to that?
Yes, I think it would be helpful, Madam Chair, if there were particular benefits that Ms. Kwan was concerned about. The CERB has obviously been the focal point. There have been a few other benefits that Minister Balser has released.
Sorry, point of order, Madam Chair. I can't really quite make out the answer. I'm sorry.
I will stop the clock, so if you can please repeat, there is some disturbance coming in, so.
Perhaps I can. If there are particular benefits that the honourable member is worried about, we're happy to track down those particular benefits. But the benefits that we have looked at that are being provided under the current situation by the government would not affect our immigration programs.
Okay, so for all government emergency support, that it would not be impacted, whether it's provincial or federal then?
For provincial, I think we would have to get back to you on that one. It would depend on the nature of some of the provincial benefits, but for federal benefits, then no, they do not have an effect. We do not treat them as social assistance.
Okay, if I could get confirmation on the provincial benefits. So take, for example, in British Columbia, some people get a hydro benefit, some people get a rent supplement as an example because of COVID. Those are all kind of individualized from province to province. I just want to make sure that people would not be penalized for that. On to the question about urgent processing. The government indicates that on the website that they will be proceeding with urgent processing 5 business days. And however, I've had cases brought to my attention where people have gone far beyond the 5 business days. And so this is deeply concerning for individuals who are stuck in the situation, faced with an abusive employer, and yet their application for urgent processing is not being processed within 5 days. Could I get a comment on that, and how can we ensure that those individuals are protected?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The honourable member is right to raise this, and we are looking hard at those provisions for vulnerable workers and trying to make sure that those timeframes are brought down.
Okay, biometrics in the government's website, it indicates that there is a provision to which there can be an automatic extension granted of 90 days instead of the 30 days to submit biometrics. But however, this is discretionary. Is there a reason why that measure is not applied unilaterally so that people can in fact have their automatic extension for 90 days?
Answer?
Thank you. I believe that extension is automatic for the 90 days. Dan, do you want to comment on that?
Merci, Madame Chair.
No, sorry, the sound quality is not sufficient for translation.
The interpreter is having problem hearing, so just we will have to hold on.
I can try. Can you hear me now?
No.
So I say that yes, like 9 days is given to.
No, the interpreter cannot.
We have a technician working on it.
We have a technician working on it, so we'll have to just wait.
Yeah, Madam Chair, we're happy to check into the language on the website. That's it's a pretty automatic extension. So let us check into that language.
Maybe I can expedite this, Madam Chair. I've written to the Minister on this, but I will resend this information to the Deputy in terms of the biometrics and the issues with it, and then maybe I can get a response that way.
Okay, so if we can have a commitment from from the officials getting the response on Ms. Kwan's question. Would that be okay?
Happy to do that.
Okay. So with this, we will end our first round of questioning. Before going into the second round, let me just check if we are okay technically. There is any issue.
The problem is.
Before we start, I just want to let the Deputy Minister know that there is some issue happening. The voice is not clearly coming in for Mr. Mills. So maybe you want to take all the, if you can answer the questions, would that be okay before we go into the second round? Because we have some
That's
issue.
fine.
Until the technician is working on it. So if meanwhile we have figured it out, then Mr. Mills can come in. But for time being, if you can answer the questions. Okay. Would that be okay with the committee members? Okay. Okay. So with that, we will start our second round of questioning. And we will go on to Mr. Chu. Mr. Chu, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the supplementary estimates, the additional money added to the original estimate was 23 million, but the entire amount, it's close to $1.1 billion in the operating expenditures and capital expenditures, and also interoperability as per the department's receiving the report on the Auditor General. I'm just curious to understand what are the performance benchmarks. You know, IT projects could sometimes be a black hole for taxpayer money, and these are very much of a concern from my constituents. What are the performance benchmarks that are being compared to, and assure that these monies are spent and additional money are being put in place, and they will be able to get the value back.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you know, Budget 2019 announced funding to enhance the integrity of Canada's border and asylum system, and this included information technology system interoperability. So this is not a new system. It's a system that will be built off our existing platform. But the monies here in Supplementary Estimates A we're really excited about, because it will enhance the integrity of the asylum system. So this will allow for increased and improved data sharing, improved client service by reducing processing times for claims, and reducing manual processing of forms, including the electronic submission of forms and supporting materials. So for ourselves, for the Immigration and the Refugee Board, for Canada Border Services Agency, this is really good news. So this is expected to be fully operational in about 2 years. By this time in 2022, there are gates associated with this that came through the Treasury Board process, and I have to say we are pretty confident in moving this system forward.
Well, thank you. Any future funding requests that you can see down the road?
We expect additional funding requests around further digital modernization of our IT system, but additional monies related to this particular project in terms of systems interoperability, we don't anticipate additional funding.
It's good that you actually brought up interoperability. Can you let the committee know a little bit more about such interoperability problem that's been facing by the department?
So what the issue? Thank you. Sorry, Madam Chair. So this is making sure that files are able to move smoothly for asylum claimants between ourselves, the Immigration Refugee Board, and the Canada Border Services Agency. So each of us has a role to play as those files come forward, and being able to do that in a far more efficient way is helpful in terms of timeliness, and that's helpful to asylum claimants themselves.
Thank you. Between 2014 and 2018, only one case was granted protection for asylum seeking from Hong Kong. Given the current situation in Hong Kong and the forward-looking nature of refugee protection, is there any plan to expedite refugee or asylum seeking applications?
That would be a question that would be best addressed to my colleagues at the Immigration and Refugee Board, and pertains to the operations in their jurisdiction, and I think it would be best left for them.
Okay, Madam Chair, I would like to use my remaining time to just thank you for the official for standing up, keep serving Canadians in their jobs. And during COVID-19, I know it's not easy. It's much appreciated that we have to rely on all these technologies to do so. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chiu. And now we will move on to Ms. Martinez-Ferreira for 5 minutes. Floor is yours.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would also like to thank all the public servants. Since the start of this pandemic, they have been working very hard to make sure that the immigration system runs smoothly, and they've been trying to face different challenges, and they're working very hard. And thanks for coming up with different procedures and directives that are the basis of this creativity and innovation. I think in every crisis there are some opportunities that arise, and you were able to seize them. So thank you. I would like to come back to some of the questions that were asked earlier, specifically the biometrics issue. Right now, we feel that with things getting back to normal, there are a lot of questions. How do we solve the problem of biometrics, especially for workers that are here and that have a 90-day delay to find these biometric data? It's not so much people that are outside of Canada. It's those who are here in Canada that should have access to biometrics, and they're not too sure where to go, what service centers are open. I think we could also have the list of all the directives that have been put in place in response to COVID, be it in terms of permits, how visas were delivered internationally to make sure that people could work here temporarily. Could you provide us with some more details on those points?
First on biometrics, and Madam Chair, thank you again for the question. So on in-Canada biometrics collection, so as the Honourable Member has indicated, we have given an extension from 30 days to 90 days for people to get their biometrics, and we constantly have these numbers under review depending on the situation and what's happening. We're working closely with Service Canada, and Service Canada is our in-Canada biometrics collection point, or many points across the country, and so we are working with them on their reopening plans to make sure that that biometrics can be collected in Canada. The Honourable Member's second question about being able to provide a list of, I think, accommodations we've made, we're happy to provide that.
Oui, Madame la Présidente, juste
Madam Chair, it wasn't so much just giving us a list, but I'm giving you the opportunity here today to provide us some of the details on the measures you have implemented.
Oh, thank you for that. Sorry. So we have implemented a number of measures for overseas visa processing, and also about perhaps seasonal agricultural workers and a number of things that we have done to ensure their safe passage to Canada. And so the first is biometrics themselves. So for many people who are coming, we have their biometrics on file. That's not an issue. For those where biometrics was an issue, we have worked with our colleagues at the Canada Border Services Agency to make sure that those biometrics can be collected at the port of entry. There have been a couple of other instances where we have been unable to attach a visa to their passport, and as many members know, we physically attach a foil, and so we have found a good accommodation in some cases where we are able to do that electronically, which I think is good news and speaks to a direction that we might like to go in the future. And so those have been really important advancements for us. The others are accommodations around excuse me. I always apologize for spring allergies. It's not COVID, it's spring allergies. But on the others, a lot of it has been accommodations around extending work permits and implied status. And that's been really important for people who are here to make sure that they're able to continue to work, and where they can find other opportunities where they've been unemployed, that they're able to do that, and to do that as quickly as possible. And the largest of those have been around those with closed work permits. And so enabling them to move to other occupations and to do that with implied status in between, I think has been a really good advancement on what we've been able to do. And then finally, just I would say on students, and when it comes to work, for those students are normally allowed to work 20 hours a week while they're in class. On summer break periods or other break periods, they're allowed to work as much as they like. But the 20-hour-a-week rule was difficult for those, particularly in essential services, and we've relaxed that rule during this period.
With this, Ms. Martinez-Ferreira's time is up, and we will have to move now on to Mr. Hallen. Mr. Hallen, you have 5 minutes.
I'll be splitting my time with Mr. Kent. So my question is, how has COVID-19 impacted the processing times for the partner and child sponsorship program, the parents and grandparent sponsorship program, and permanent residency applications?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So COVID-19 has impacted our processing times quite differently depending on the lines of business. And so for many in the temporary foreign worker lines of business, our processing times have actually improved during this period. For other parts of our application process, particularly those that are digital, we've seen improvements. However, for those that are paper-based, like parents and grandparents and spousal applications, that has not been the case. And those we've seen some further delays, and we are looking at means where we can address this. Part of this will involve physically moving our people back into the work site, and we have started to do that in some of our case processing centers, where people can have access to those paper files so we can deal with some of the issues around wait times.
What are some of the anticipated processing times once the border restrictions ease?
Once the border restrictions ease, we'll go back to our normal, we hope, processing times, or back to our service standards, and making sure that those happen within service standards. And again, it will be different depending on the type of application. So for students, where we've gone to student direct application, such as in India or China, like we hope to have those applications back down to 2 weeks and 3 weeks. those are electronic applications. Ditto on some of the temporary resident visas when we do that. In other areas, we'll be putting on a much bigger push to get those down within the service standards, which differ by immigration category.
We know that there's fewer permanent residents this year coming in, but on overall, how is the department preparing for the potential influx of migration when the border restrictions ease?
When border restrictions ease, we're working closely. So I think there are really 2 or 3 parts of this question. So the first is preparing ourselves for additional applications that will come in, and Mr. Kent had part of that question in his. So looking at our IT systems and being able to accommodate additional applications that might come in. The second is what we do in terms of a welcoming society. So making sure that we're working closely with settlement agencies, and that such agencies have the resources and are well equipped to begin to welcome people and to work with them on what may be a tighter labor market when people come in. So we've worked hard to make sure that settlement agencies have good PPE, that there are good accommodations and good workforce practices around distancing that will have to happen, and those are important elements of our program.
And thank you, Deputy. I've got a brief question here. Last year, Canada assigned members of the Standing Rapid Deployment Group to our mission in Hong Kong to assist the mission and Canadian citizens there in the territory. Can you tell us if that team is in place in Hong Kong today?
Our own, from an immigration side, no, I'm not. I would have to get back to you on that question.
Okay, if you could assist us. Chair, how much time is?
About 40 seconds.
Okay, another fairly brief question, Deputy. I understand the express entry system has remained operational, although the candidate ranking score requirements have been dropped significantly. And I'd just like to ask, are you still trying to achieve 2020 intake targets? And are we lowering standards, given that the provincial nominee program, the minimum CRS is almost twice as high?
Thanks for that question on express entry. This is great news that we have been able to continue draws. This is a system that is digitally based, electronic based, and has continued to work really well throughout this process. So the honourable member is right to point out we have had a slight drop in the score on those to apply. I just have to point out that these scores represent really high human capital. And the shift we've seen from what's been in the 470s down to 452, sorry to be too technical, I think is really good news for a lot of the applicants who are in the pool, including students. And just to be clear, people coming through with slightly lower scores. Okay.
Sorry for that. Maybe someone else can raise that in their question. So sorry, Mr. Kent, for cutting you. Now we will move on to Ms. Shanahan for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. And well, perhaps I can give a moment to the Deputy to continue her answer, and I will be sharing my time with Mr. Serret.
I'll be very brief. A score of 452 still represents exceptionally high language capability, really high education. So likely that's a master's degree that's in there, or professional degrees that are there as well, and really good links to Canada. So it still represents exceptionally high human capital.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer. Chair, I'd like to switch gears a little bit and actually ask about something that came out of the Budget Implementation Act of 2019. which was legislation around the establishment of a new College of Immigration and Citizenship Consultants. I think all of us around the table have had experience, have heard stories about, immigration consultants can run the gamut, right, to very reputable to like not so much. So I'd like to hear from the Deputy about, to give us an update on the status of the College of Immigration and Citizenship Consultants.
I think Ms. Campbell-Jarvis might actually be in a better place to answer that. Marion, or I'll take it, but Marion?
Can everybody hear me now? You can hear me? Okay, good, thank you. So the Minister noted in his remarks earlier this morning, the next steps are really to set up the college itself, and have the college proceed with its bylaws, and that will be proceeding in good time.
Sorry, to stop the clock here. I think the interpreters cannot hear the voice clearly, so can you please have a look?
I'll take it, Madam Chair, sorry.
Sorry for that. I think you will have to answer these questions. So the problem is persisting from from her. So I think, Deputy Minister, if you can take the floor and answer the question. So we'll start the clock back.
I'd be happy to. I'm sure Ms. Campbell-Jarvis would have given a better answer than I'm about to, but implementation is going well. We're working with the college itself. I believe the regulatory package has been moving forward for the next pieces of this to come to force. And as it stands now, and our fingers are crossed, we're not anticipating any hurdles, and it's on quite smoothly.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Mr. Surrey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to go back to the rural immigration pilot project. Deputy Minister, I know that there's some criteria about the capacity of a community to integrate and keep a newcomer and family. And I know for larger and medium-sized cities, there's government-funded settlement agencies, but in smaller communities there is not. But they do have church groups, old age clubs. But our IRC staff have excluded small communities like St. Charles and Noelville because they have 2,000 or 3,000 population, and because they don't have any funded government settlement agencies. But they do, in my opinion, have the capacity to integrate a few families, but they've been removed from the pilot project, those small communities. So I just wanted to see if you have an explanation and see if we could look at changing that criteria to include communities of 2,000 or 3,000 in the rural immigration pilot project.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're always happy to look at ways that we can improve these pilot projects. Both the Minister has said they're pretty near and dear to his heart, but to ours as well. On both the Atlantic pilot, the rural and northern pilot that the member has referred to, and we hope soon one that's focused more on municipalities. So we're always happy to look at ways we can improve. But one of the things we know helps is that when we have good professional settlement support, and it doesn't mean we can't use the resources that are there in the community from church groups and others who've got some good experience around doing this, but it certainly helps to have a service provider organization or a professional settlement support that's there. One of the things we've done in some communities is look at satellite operation. So in towns in Alberta, one of the major service provider organizations out of Calgary has set up a satellite office in Brooks or in other communities, and we've been able to move forward. So I'm happy to take that back and to see what we can do.
Sorry, your time is up.
Merci beaucoup encore pour le personnel aussi pour tout le travail qu'ils font également.
Thank you and the personnel for all the great work they do.
We will move on to Ms. Normandine. You have 2.5 minutes. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I already want to project myself in the situation after the crisis when the economic recovery will become concrete. I would like to hear some of the public servants on the possibilities that these ALMTs be prolonged. The company cannot know if they would need employees in a month, in 3 months, and these ETAs could be expired at a moment when the corporation or the business is getting back to recovery. So what about the possibility of extending the ETAs?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just having a little trouble hearing the member. Sorry about that. I think I heard, and that's being able to work with employers to make sure that we're not inadvertently penalizing them for things that may have expired. And when visas come through, so we're happy to continue to look at this. It's not a magic switch that will be thrown when the recovery takes place, or at least we don't think that's going to be the case. And so there's a need for us to constantly examine what are the measures we've put in place, when do the interim measures end, what's the right time for that to end, and it's a system of, I hope, constant improvement in the department around this.
En fait, je vais peut-être reformuler.
Maybe I should restate my question. I was wondering, do you think there will be more flexibility in terms of the impact, labor market impact studies? Because companies that will be opening progressively might need people in 1 month, 3 months. Maybe a corporation might shut their doors, but a business next door might not have the same needs, can use the LMLAs of another company. I'm just trying to assess the flexibility in the future situation.
Thank you. I better understand now. Sorry about that. That's a question that's more the purview of our colleagues at ESDC, but we're happy to work with them on that and to work on the requirements of particularly the temporary foreign worker program.
Okay, so sorry for that. Yes, thank you. And now we will move on to Ms. Kwan for 2.5 minutes. Ms. Kwan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm wondering, until the minister tables the immigration levels numbers in the fall, can the officials provide this committee the information that they have on the different immigration and refugee streams of how many people came in for this fiscal year up to this period? How many?
Yeah, Madam Chair, we're happy to go back and look at that. I don't have those numbers in front of me today.
If those numbers could be submitted to the committee, and if I could ask for that information to be submitted, I think reasonably by the end of the month, so that we can have that information, please. On a different question.
We'll put a number of caveats around that to the honourable member's question, just because of the imperfect nature of some of our own data sources that come in, but we're happy to provide.
Thank you. On a different issue, for those whose work permit expired at the same time as when they lost their job due to COVID-19, as it stands right now, it is my understanding that they would not be able to apply for a new work permit under the newly announced temporary measure. Is that correct?
I think it might depend on the specific case. If there are cases that the member has in mind, we're happy to go back and to look at that.
I think it's not just a specific case, but an overall policy question, because there are cases where people's work permit expired at the same time when they've lost their job, and so therefore they don't have an employer, and then their work permit has expired, so they don't have implied status. They can't apply for a new work permit.
Right.
What happens to those people?
And so if people had not applied for a renewal of their work permit before it expired, you're right, there are issues around implied status then. And we can reach out. For those who have lost their job and whose work permit expired before they lost their job or as they were losing their job, then that's a more difficult situation. So we do have some accommodation around that, but it's a little more difficult, and I would say on a case-by-case basis, but you're right.
Yeah, the problem with that, and I've actually...
sorry for interrupting, Ms. Kwan, your time is up. So thank you. Thank you, Deputy Minister, for answering all the questions. So with this, the Standing Committee meeting comes to an end. Before I end, on behalf of, I think all the members join me in thanking our public servants, and this is the National Public Service Week. So on behalf of all the members of this committee, I would take this opportunity to thank all our public servants, and thank you to all the officials from IRCC for your hard work during this pandemic. Thank you for all the work which you do for all Canadians every day. And especially, I know the last 3 months have been very tough for all the public servants. So this is a time to recognize your contributions and thank you on behalf of all Canadians. So thank you for appearing before this committee today and answering all these questions. So with this, the committee...
Chair, just before you end, just to also say thank you to the clerk, the analyst, and everyone who made this possible today. Et la traduction, merci beaucoup.
Definitely. So thank you to all the witnesses for coming and appearing before the committee. So, and before I adjourn the meeting, I want to take this opportunity to thank the clerk and the analyst and the interpreters and all the House administration people who made this meeting possible, because it takes a lot to arrange the meeting and keeping in mind all the physical distancing. So thanks to all the House administration people also for making sure that we follow the public health rules and keep everyone safe. So with this, the meeting will come to an end, and I want to wish all the members best of health. Please. Thank you for all the work which you do on behalf of your constituents, and especially all the work which you have done during this pandemic. So big thank you to everyone. So with this, I adjourn the meeting. The meeting.